Okay, let me take a step back and let's review that again. Once again, I'm going lightning speed, and I want to take a step back. It's like, okay, let's review the concepts. Let's see what we're doing here. Let's go step by step, because I see the same problems on multiple screens. And that's an indication of y'all doing it right and me doing it wrong. So let's take a step back and let's review that again. Let's see what's going on. So let's start with the page here. Everyone understand we've got two text boxes, a button, we've got a little div here, and we've got a table with a bunch of data. We're all good there, right? It's where the jQuery comes in the JavaScript. Let's go step by step and see, how does this run? Why is it running? So we all know about HTML, head, all that stuff. What is that guy doing right there? Line 4.
It's calling to file. It's essentially acting as like a reference so that we can use and access the library.
I get it. So the download the file that we download is reading into that.
It's reading it. Yeah, so the answer was, just to repeat for Richmond, all this is the file we downloaded from the internet, and we put it in our little JS subdirectory, and it's named that, and we said, oh, when you load this page browser, I want you to load that file. That's all we did. Why did we do that? Because inside of that magical file is all of the functionality of jQuery. That's how we get it. So as soon as we do that, why do we have to have another script tag? Because that's where we're going to write our own script. That's not referencing the file anymore. This is for our own scripts. So now we start writing this crazy stuff. This isn't like the other JavaScript from yesterday. This is jQuery style JavaScript. It's still JavaScript. There's nothing special about it. The only thing we're doing is, instead of writing normal JavaScript, we're actually using the functions defined in this file. That's all we're doing. So step one is, what in the world is this crazy line of code? I wrote it fast, and I didn't explain it because on almost every jQuery page, you have to write this line of code. What does this mean? This means if I were to take this out, and remember, there's a starting encoding and an ending encoding. So see this down here? I've got a nice little editor. It says, oh, you made a mistake. So I'm going to comment the top and the bottom out. If I were to just do this, like that. Actually, I don't even want to go there. Let's comment that out for just a second. I want to do something very, very simple. I want to use jQuery to show me the contents of this div. I want to read that div, and I want to put it in an alert box. That's all I want to do. We've learned that. We've seen it a couple times now. In jQuery, how do we do that? Or if you're not comfortable with jQuery yet, tell me in normal JavaScript, how do we do that?
So first you make a function. You may not even need a function.
No need for a function.
So you would do, using jQuery, use the $, which refers to the actual jQuery, parentheses, and then where you want to go find it. So this is going to where you're actually looking. And in this case, that's the div.
And if I wanted to find it from here, how would I find what that's, what it's called? How do I?
You could go to the top left, the little clicker, and then click on it.
Perfect. So right here, it says div ID is equal to output hyphen check. As a matter of fact, I can even double click here, and I can copy it. Press escape, it goes back the way it was. Switch back over here, bang. That's not going to work as is because I missed a character. Not Scott. Melissa, what am I missing here?
Our hashtag.
Aaron, what is the hashtag? Aaron's not here. There he is. What does hashtag mean?
It is for an ID.
ID. We're using that because look what it says. It says ID is equal to output check there. That's all it means. So now that we have it, we're all good, right? No, we're not good. We found what we wanted, but we haven't got the text. So you have to tell jQuery what you want. So the way you say, somebody help me out, how do we get the HTML text inside of that div? I get these two confused myself. If it's an input box, it's val. If it's anything else, it's what? HTML. I get them confused because they work kind of exactly the same way. And this is not an input box, it's a div, so we got to do HTML. If it were an input box, we would say val. So we've got output check.html. Now are we good? We're not done. No. Well, the question is, why do we put the HTML here? So the step here is that, what I have highlighted there, is telling jQuery, I want to find anything with an ID of output-check. Go find it. And then jQuery expects me to ask something of it. It expects me to say, okay, I've got it for you, now what do you want? So what we want is, we want the HTML that is inside of that thing. So we found the div, now we're saying, give me back the HTML text inside of there. So that's why we said that. So it may be a little bit confusing, but if we wanted to change that HTML content, we put it in there. And this is a hint. We're actually gonna go back, we're gonna finish this exercise. Here's a hint for y'all. You can actually, notice it says HTML, not just text. We can actually say things like that. We can pass it HTML text. And when you give it to jQuery, jQuery is just going to put it in the page. And what does the browser do to HTML on a page? It renders it. So that was the tricky part of the challenge. But we're going to get back there in a minute. For now, we're not changing anything. We're just reading. So we're going to say, give me the HTML, please. There it is. What are we going to do with it? What did I say we wanted to do? I just wanted to show a little box on the screen. How do we say that?
Alert.
Alert. Alert is a function. So how do you pass something to a function?
Put it in parentheses.
Put it in parentheses. So you all had to think about it for a second there, and you've seen it like 10 times. Like, oh, I know alert. Yeah, but you didn't realize you're using a function. You were passing a parameter to a function. You already know how to do that. There. And that's kind of nasty to look at, right? Some developers will do that. No big deal, just like, okay. JavaScript's smart enough to understand that you're still talking about one statement until you get, and you could even do that if you want. Whatever you like. I prefer to see things more compressed. That makes sense? So everybody good right there. Now, the point of this was, it's like, what's that crazy line of code in line 6 that I've got commented out right now? We're going to get there, and I'm going to explain why. This is going to work, probably. Okay. But it says undefined. What in the world's going on?
You didn't assign whatever it's looking for a value.
Since you didn't put in the first and last name.
Did you have any new text?
No, no, no. None of those are correct.
Oh, because you took the text out, so it should show.
What is an output check?
Why did that change the whole world?
Oh, did it have to go?
It helps it recognize the language.
So it works if I put it inside the document ready. But if I take that out, it doesn't work anymore. It said undefined. Undefined means exactly what it's saying. It says, you're asking about something that does not exist. Sorry, guy. Why doesn't it exist? Look at the statement that we just commented out. Document ready. So this will run as soon as it comes to it in the page. But at this point, we're up in the head. We haven't even given the browser or ask the browser to render anything. So it doesn't know what we're talking about with output check. It doesn't exist yet. Now, throw you for a loop. If we put this at the bottom of the page, it would probably work. But that's no fun. It's like, I don't want to think about that. I don't want to think about where it is on the page. I just want it to work, you know? So that's what this is about. That says, you know, jQuery, when everything else is done, when you've loaded your page and I know everything in there is done, as I used to have a client that said, I was writing Excel macros like 15 years ago. And the macro took forever on his slow machine. And he said, I got to wait for it to finish breathing. You got to wait for the page to stop breathing. You got to wait for it to render before you can actually talk to the elements on the page. That's all we're doing with this thing. And that's why we have this crazy line of code. And it's not that crazy. Let's break it down. So we've got document. We know that dollar is the jQuery function. And it says, what are we passing? Oh, I want the whole document. Wait for the whole document, and then, you know that click event that we have right here? There's a ready event. An event is something that says, when this happens, I want to write some code that is triggered when that happens. So when the ready event occurs, I want you to do this. What is this? Well, I'm going to define a function. Right there. And to save space, you just put it on the same line. What's inside my function? A very simple one right now. Yep. I'm going to take all this stuff out because it's getting in my way. It's that we got 3 lines of code here. And we're not moving on until everybody understands these 3 lines of code and why they exist. Because this line of code, the reason I typed it so fast, it's not because I'm a whiz, it's because I type it a dozen times a day. I'm tired of typing that line of code. Okay? Everybody good? Any questions? Let's see if Richmond has any questions.
No.
Okay. So, very simple. That's how we get page initialization. Now, that's how we read an element on the page. Now, the challenge was this. The challenge was we need to read the values of 2 text boxes, and when somebody clicks on a button, take those values and put them into a row in the table. And that's no easy task. I knew that was going to be hard for you. Why did I give you something that was hard? Because that's why we're here. Because I got so many more things to teach you. So let's go back and let's do that together. And I want you to understand this. I'm going to do it for you. And then I want you to do it. I'm going to erase the code. And I want you to go back and do it. I'm not going to paste it in Slack this time. So, one question. Document is something that the browser gives to you in JavaScript. Very good question. The question was, what is this document thing? In JavaScript, and this doesn't have to do with jQuery, there is a window.document. It's a predefined object for JavaScript. So even in normal JavaScript, not jQuery, you could actually say window.document. I think title equal whatever, and you could actually, I think, you know, I don't write that style of JavaScript anymore. I think you could change what's in the little title bar. So this document object, window.document, why didn't you have to say window then? Window is the context. That's like, it's automatic. It's like, that's where you are. So document is just given to you. It's one of the very few things that the browser says, there, it's yours. Like console. You all see me use console a couple times? Console is one of those objects that's just there that you could use if you want. Document is the current page. That's what it means. Okay, so back to focusing on what it is we're trying to do. What we want to do, and we've got the HTML for this. If you don't have the HTML for this before we start, that's step 1. That's step 0, okay? So if you haven't got the HTML down, you need to practice that a little bit, or you need to ask a docent to come over and help you a little bit. Because we need to get that down, because we're starting to build on that too. So what we want to do is take whatever is in this text box and this. By the way, those are kind of ugly text boxes. it would be nice to actually say what those text boxes are. What's an HTML attribute that we can use to specify a little gray background text so we can tell users what we want there? Placeholder. Somebody knows some HTML or did some homework. So, all I did is I added, what's this thing called? What I have highlighted there? Attribute. Very good. Input here is what's that called? Element. Okay. So we're kind of doing cart before the horse. We taught you how to code before we taught you the terminology. I'm coming back and I'm filling in the gaps. So input is an element. Type is an attribute here. ID is an attribute. First name text is the value of that attribute. Placeholder is an attribute. First name is the value of that attribute. Yep, it's just repetitive, you know. Button, element, ID, attribute. Remember it. Placeholder just an attribute on the input element. Now, on Monday, would you have understood that? No. What you do now? Save this. See what that did. Wow, it's that easy. So now the user doesn't have to guess what they need to put in the box. Okay. So now, if I clicked Add Name, is it going to do anything? No. Emma over there had the unfortunate experience of having that same thing happen to her. Clicking the button, nothing happens. So we want something to happen when somebody clicks this button. In jQuery, step 1 is what? We got to find what we're looking for. Bless you.
Thank you.
So what's the name of that button? I'm in the browser. What's a quick way to find how to reference that button?
Developer tools.
There it is. It's highlighted. Oh, it has an ID. How convenient. So, step 1 in jQuery. Find what you want to talk about. Found it. That's it. Question?
So, yeah, so if we're doing the assignment where we're adding a row to the table.
We're going to do that, yeah.
That's what this is, right? Why, I guess I might be jumping the horse, but whatever it's called, but why are we...
Cart before the horse, but you can jump over the horse if you want.
I'll jump whatever I want. Why are we doing it on the button? Why are we searching for the button and not for the table or for the row itself?
We're going to need those too.
Okay.
Yeah. We're going to need all 3 of them.
Okay.
So the question was, why are we looking for the button instead of the table or the row that we're going to add to the table? And the answer is, we're going to look for all 3 of them, just one at a time. So first we have the button. And when they click the button, we have more things to find. We got to go find this text box because we need to get the word Kelly out of there. How do we find that text box? Developer tools, your best friend. Come on, guys. So first name text. It's got an ID. How convenient. So do you want to do it the longhand way or you want to see it all in one line of text? Longhand way. That was a resounding. Do it the longhand way. Okay. Now, we found it. Let me read this to you. So we've got the first name text. That's going to give us that text box. But we don't want the text box, the whole thing. All we want is the text inside of it. How do we say that? Val. So that is going to give us the text inside of the text box. What are we doing with it? We're putting it into a variable that we're declaring here called first name.
No, not do last name shorthand.
I can, but that would be nah. Nah. We'll do first name and last name in a minute. Make you happy. The request was, can you mix shorthand and longhand? Yeah, but I don't want to. Now, I'm not going to bore you because finding the last name, I'm going to trust that I name things in a certain pattern. It's probably last name text. And if not, we're going to see the error soon enough. So I've got my first name and I got my last name. I'm good there. Add to table. Now, if you're not sure that you have the first name and last name, and you don't want to code blind is what they call it, you don't want to code in the dark and just kind of guess and hope everything works later on, here's how you do it. Console is your friend. Just write it out and be done with it. Save. Go over here in the browser. Doesn't cost you anything. And what do you know? I was wrong. Nothing showed up. Or, well, it's actually fine. It's writing something, but we can't see it because there's nothing in the box. Silly me. It's writing a blank, and you can't see a blank. So that's not going to help us too much. That's the point at which, oh, my code's broken, but actually it's working perfectly. You just can't see that it's working perfectly. So first name, last name, let's actually do something with it. Let's do, once again, when the page first loads, there's nothing to be in the box. We have to wait for somebody to request it. So when do we want to get the text in these text boxes? After they typed into them. Yeah, somebody's got to click a button. Otherwise, if we get it as soon as the page loads, which is what we're in here, then nothing's going to be in there ever. We got to wait for somebody to type something in and then click a button or somehow indicate, I'm ready for you to get the text. So, do we have a button? Sure enough, we do. Add to table is what we call that button. So, this is very, very important. And Harper actually warned me about this. He said, I think we're going to need a little bit more time on event handlers. And this is an event handler. What we're doing here is we find what we want, common pattern in jQuery. Found it. So that's our button. Now, it's not going to do us any good just sitting there by itself. We've got to ask something of it. When they do what to the button, do we want to do something? When they click it, there happens to be a click handler. So now click accepts one parameter. It's what do you want to have happen? And that happens to be the parameter is the definition of a function. You learned about functions yesterday or the day before. So we're creating a function here. It just doesn't have a name. And we're saying, there's your function. Now, we're not doing anything in that function. So when they click, it's going to run and nothing's going to happen. Let's move this into that function. So it runs. That's one confusing thing. And I remember when I first saw jQuery myself, and I already had 12 years experience of developing at the time or something like that, I said, how in the world is this black magic doing its thing? And it was very confusing about, but I wrote the code there, why isn't it just running when the page runs? Because you've got to understand that in jQuery, you're defining functions that get called by events. So this is not going to happen unless somebody triggers an event to happen, and then your code runs. So there's a difference between an alert, I put right here, and something that is defined as part of an event. So this ready is an event. That's why it doesn't happen automatically. What's the event there? What triggers that to happen? Nope. Line 7 was what I'm talking about.
Page loads.
Page is ready. Everything else is done. It's finished breathing. Now we have inside of there, this doesn't run. No. All we're doing is telling jQuery, when somebody clicks on this thing, which happens to be a button, I want you to run this function. It doesn't run immediately. All we've done is say, jQuery, when this happens, run this code. Which is why when we reload the page, you don't see anything happen. But it's all what they call wired up. It's ready. When you click that button, it's ready to run this code. So you've defined a function that happens on an event. So Now, if we do that console.log inside of here, okay, so that's our alert. That happened immediately. There it is. We wrote it to the console.
How do you, okay.
Now if I do it again, it'll sit there and run all day long. Every time I click, it runs that function. So it doesn't run automatically. It runs as when some event occurs. Which event? Well, we get to choose what event. There are other ways, I'm not going to confuse things now, but that's not the only way to specify an event handler. For now, that's all you need to know. So first name and last name, that's step one. We're halfway there. We're more than halfway there. So we've defined an event, a function, that is triggered when somebody clicks a button. We've collected the first and last name text, and all we have to do is we have to write a little bit of HTML and put it in the right place, and we're scot-free. We're done. So, to Scott's earlier point, don't we need to know where we're going to put it? Sure. We need to know about the table. Specifically, not the whole table. We probably want to put it in the table body, don't we? Because we have a T head and a T body. So let's put this right in the T body. So, how do we do that? First, jQuery rule number one. You got to find what you're looking for. Help me find the table body of the relevant table. So this is what my HTML looks like.
So you first want to do the pound, which is ID, our table, and then go to the next level, which would be pound T body, or would you need to put pound T head as well? I guess it would just be T body because it's not in T head.
Space. So first, our table. That's perfect. Yeah, Scott's helping us out. But let's have somebody else chime in. So table, our table. Space means inside of that. Search for something else. What are we looking for? We're looking for the body. What's the tag for that? T-body, yeah. So we found what we want. We're good. All we have to do is remember what function will let us add to existing HTML. Append. If we said HTML, it would replace the whole thing. It would replace the contents of it. It wouldn't replace the outer tags. Question?
So do you not need another pound identifier for T-body?
It's not an ID. Does it even have an ID? No. No. Pound always means ID. The question was, do we need another hash next to T-body? No, because hash always means, in this language, it means, flashback to another language there. T-body, pound always means in CSS and in jQuery, it means ID. A dot always means class. So we found what we needed, and somebody chimed in with, how do we add something? It's append. And what are we appending? We want a new row. You all know how to write an HTML row now. I know you do. I've seen you do it. So we're going to have to, and believe me, this is kind of nasty to have to write HTML inside of JavaScript. There are better ways, but one step at a time. So we're doing it dirty, but we're going to make it clean later on. And you'll never do this again. So we're writing HTML. Okay, so I'm not putting all the spaces in because then you'd have to put it on separate lines. And so this is beginning of the table, row, cell, end cell, second cell, end cell, end row. That's a little row all by itself. All we're missing, let's just do it like that. What's going to happen? Let's just run it. Who's going to tell me what's going to happen?
It's gonna give you 2 rows.
Just a blank,
Nope.
just one blank row.
A table with 2 rows.
We're going to have a blank row. It's going to add 1 blank row. But why isn't it going to listen to whatever we type in here?
It's listening. It's renaming it's listening for everything you asked it to do.
The text is black.
Nope. Let's take a close look at what we're doing.
Because
We didn't put any data in it. Exactly right, Jamila. So what do we have to do? See how all this stuff is coming together. We've got to actually make this kind of nasty. We have to do this. Concatenation. So what does this mean? Let's, we can make this a little prettier. We don't have to be that nasty. Okay, so I did it in 2 lines. Not really any more readable, but... So this is the new thing. We are creating a string. Why is it called a string, by the way? It's a string of characters. Characters right next to each other, it's like a little string of characters. So a string of characters, and why do we have these things, these single quotes everywhere? And what do these plus signs mean? In JavaScript, you can use single quotes or double quotes to delimit. Once again, I'm using those fancy words. String delimiters mean that's the start and that's the end of my string. Otherwise, if we had a space in there, there's no way a computer is going to understand that this would go together. Computers are not very smart. So you have to put delimiters around strings so it knows where you're starting and where you're ending. The plus sign in JavaScript can be used to add numbers, like what we do in normal life, or to concatenate strings. In this case, we're concatenating strings. So when this is ready, it's going to have a row of HTML text. All we're doing with jQuery there is saying, take that HTML text, put it on the bottom. Let's try this again. And that's a really annoying alert, isn't it? Okay. So the difference here, and this is one thing I forgot to tell you about. Up to this point, we'd use jQuery to add text to a div or concatenate text to a div, but I didn't show you that you can replace or augment whatever piece of a page with pure HTML. You can actually attach events to that newly generated HTML, no problem. I'll show you how to do that later, though. That's not today. Now, one thing that I see that I really don't like is users. Remember, 6th grade education out there on average when we're dealing with users. I know David said 8th. I'm purposely saying 6. Users are liable to do anything. They are going to throw a fit when they see that you don't automatically clear their text boxes after you click the button. So, let's clear the text boxes for them. You know how to do this. So we got 2 text boxes. Help me out here. Somebody, we're already in the right place. It's going to happen right after the response was on click. And that's a good idea, but we don't have to have another event handler. We just did this. Right after we added the row, all we want to do is clear the text boxes immediately.
So hashtag first name, dash text, do that clear, or you can just set it to empty quotes.
The second. So Sasha spoke up and said, couldn't you just use the val and set it to an empty string? And that's exactly right. First, you have to find it. Once again, step 1, jQuery. What is it that we're looking for? We're looking for that text box specified by that ID. Val. That would be what we used, and we just did on line 8 to get the value. We want to set the value to blank. I gotta get rid of that virus.
I do.
I don't know what happened there.
there's not a clear function.
So the question was, there's not a .clear function? I mean, there might be, but I've never used it. This is the way you normally see it done. Now, I'm just going to copy and paste LAST name text. So I cleared the first one, cleared the last one. So now, there you go. Let's try that. Don't take my word for it. Yep, all clear now. So, questions. I'm trying to slow down and make sure everybody understands val, click, HTML, the two variants where you can pass something to replace, or you can just pass nothing and get the value back. Also, there's the append. Question?
So, you placed a lot of importance on understanding triggers and events within jQuery. Right now, the only events that we've really experienced are click. Right? Okay. I'm just making sure that I'm not losing my mind.
Okay, the question was, you placed a lot of importance on events in jQuery. And am I correct in assuming that you've only covered click? And the answer is yes.
We also covered ready, or red.
Ready. There's ready. Yeah, it's only ever used there, though. There are more. There are quite a few more. If you want to take a look at those, look up hover. Hover, you pass two functions. For now, let's focus on this. Let's get everyone understanding click. And the good news is, if you want to actually, I'm not even going to give you something else. Go look it up on the jQuery site. Tomorrow we're going to spend all day doing jQuery, learning it in and out, making sure this is back of your hand stuff, because you use this almost every day as a professional developer, not a learning developer. So we're going to learn jQuery very, very well tomorrow if you don't get it today. We're also going to learn, now that you've got jQuery, there are all kinds of other libraries that are on top of jQuery, like Bootstrap. Like, now we're giving you series power. We're no longer using that pink hammer from Target. So let's make sure everybody understands this. Any other questions about this? Because I want to make sure it's very clear, and I'm going to come around and help along with the other docents and make sure everybody gets this working. Do y'all want me to put this in Slack so you can actually pilfer? Or, yeah? Okay.
Please.
Let's go and try it for at least half an hour.
Okay, before everybody gets into it.